What's going on, guys? It is Murdering here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today we're going to be going over what I'm going to consider the best speed clan boss team in the game at the moment. Now, first I want to go over what a speed clan boss team is and tell you why I think it's the best, because I'm sure a lot of you already know there are some very good speed teams, some of which I've actually covered in videos in the past. So the most common use of a speed team is for a player who doesn't have a counterattack champion. So what they've been doing is, the normal idea around a speed team is to pick 5 champions, fill out the roles properly, make sure you have attack down, defense down, weaken does help, someone like a poisoner, any type of healer if you want, or just a utility character, someone like I'm using Kreela here, or that ally attack to get some extra damage out. So with that being said, and from what we figured out from the turn meter, there are obviously amazing unkillable speed teams and normal speed teams using what you guys know as a 2-to-1 ratio. The only issue with the 2-to-1 ratio is those teams aren't realistic to build for 90 to 95% of the entire player base. So what I've done here is I built a team that I'm calling the best because it's much more manageable. No speed is higher than 220 on this entire team. It maximizes the amount of attacks you actually get per turn here, which I'm going to show you once we start this battle off, and this is going to change a lot of things. One of the biggest benefits to this team is I actually figured out a speed composition that will work in Ultra Nightmare as well as Nightmare, which is going to be huge for people trying to 3-key and 1-key the appropriate difficulties. So with all of that being said, let's get into the champions I'm using here. As we can see, I am using Alton as our leader here. We have Kreela, I am using Venus. I was going to use Dracomorph, however I didn't want Dracomorph to skew the damage too much, since Dracomorph is the best clan boss damage dealer in the entire game, with the amount of poisons he has to offer, with how hard his kit actually hits the clan boss for raw damage. So I elected to use Venus, who is significantly worse than Dracomorph when comparing the two together. I also used Grush as a healer, and on top of things, I finally ended up using Apothecary to make this speed tune possible. Now I'm really excited to show you the results from this team with such low speeds. I was shocked myself, and I did not expect it, to be honest, especially using Venus instead of Dracomorph. So let's get straight into this run, and I will show you the basic rundown on how things work here. So now, as I've kind of showed you and I did just kind of mess up there by hitting the A1 while trying to shift things over, it's not going to play too much of a role here. However, there's a rather complex opening rotation for this, and obviously it's not going to matter for the damage dealers, so we can go ahead and debuff the boss, but things are really complex here when it comes to Apothecary, and this is a slight drawback from how good this team is. However, don't give up on this just yet, because this is going to be a very strong team. So make sure you're paying close attention. If you want to replicate this, is the next part gets a little bit tricky. What you're going to do is you have to read which 5 champions you have. So once you've done that, you're going to go all the way to the bottom left hand corner of your screen, click on the auto button, and you are good to go. You are now in what I'm calling the best speed team ever that you can possibly make with realistic speeds, and the realistic speed part is really what's making this, in my opinion, the best team over something like a 2-to-1 ratio team where lots of people can't hit 265 speed with reasonable stats. A lot of people can't hit multiple champions over 230 speed. So once we get into showing you the individual speeds of these champions, you're going to see how easy it is. And one thing I love about this, it's fairly consistent as far as who gets stunned. The only champion that can absolutely not get stunned to keep this speed tune is obviously going to be our Apothecary here, and sometimes it is possible that this does happen at the end of the match. It's usually going to be the very end of the match, but once we start our next round, I will show you a basic count of how many turns each champion is taking. So we'll wait after the stun here and I'll hit 1 speed. Okay, so we have a counter attack from Venus. Apothecary went. Grush the Mangler went. We had Kreela go. Venus. Apothecary went a second time there. Now we have Grush, Alton, Kreela, Venus, which is going to be followed by Apothecary again, Grush again, and Alton again, as well as Krila again. So as you can see, multiple champions are going multiple times in every single run. I believe the breakdown is 3 champions are on a 5-to-3 ratio and 2 champions are on a 4-to-3 ratio. But the cool part about this is you don't have to pick your speeds based on which champion is at which speed, because this is rotating through the entire matchup, so it literally doesn't matter what speed goes to what character. You can have Alton the fastest if you have the best defensive gear there. You can have someone like Venus be the fastest if you have really fast attack-based gear. All of these things matter, and they definitely count when trying to build a team like this, which is why I think this is such a great team, because it really takes a lot of stress off of the user who is trying to kind of build this team and move on with what they're trying to do here. So now that this team has been playing for a while, you can kind of see where the synergy comes in. We do have defense up from Alton here. We have the ally attack from Krila, as mentioned before. Krila is also wearing one of the bizarre accessories that has a chance to decrease the cooldown and refresh that cooldown. We have Venus obviously applying the poisons, the defense on Riken, which is not that strong, as we have actually already seen. But if you look at the total damage, we're at 11 million damage on turn 14, which is very impressive for a speed team. What a lot of people do, and a lot of mistakes that people make when they're making a speed team, is they say, I'm going to go in here with 250 speed, 260 speed, throw in an Arbiter, throw in any type of resurrection champion, and say, I'm just going to go get as many turns as possible, let a champion die, maybe build them with less survivability, more attack, have them get revived, and things can go horribly wrong very quickly. I know I've done speed teams before with 5 champions in Relentless gear and actually did less damage than I'm going to show you that actually came out of this team here. So all of these reasons together really lead up to why I think this is such a strong team going forward, and pretty much how consistent it is. As we saw there, Krila actually did take the stun at turn 18, and like I said before, that is fine as long as it isn't Apothecary. So as you can probably guess already, I am running the offense tree and the defense tree for masteries to give myself that extra amount of counterattack once these champions start taking a certain amount of damage. Thrush is obviously a fantastic healer, applying that leech debuff on top of a secondary attack down and a continuous heal. And we got really lucky here with a bunch of counterattacks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see you all again once we get to the end of this battle. We're going to go over the recap, break down who did how much damage, then we'll get into how I have these champions actually geared for this. Alright guys, so as we can see here, the round did finish, the match and key did finish. We ended up with 30.64 million damage. We did get an unlucky crit there at the end. We survived 38 rounds in a speed team, which is absolutely incredible. Some counterattack teams don't even survive that long. You have Alton doing 6.3 million damage, Krila at 6 million, Venus at 8.2, Thrush at 6.7, as well as Apothecary doing 3.2 million damage. Now, if you were to swap someone like Venus for a Dracomorph, you would be seeing incredible damage. He probably does around 14 to 15 million damage compared to her 8 million damage in a scenario like this. However, my best actual attempt with this team, since this was a live run as I just showed you here, was actually 35 million damage. And in that run, I didn't get any unlucky crits and I survived all the way to round 42. So now a big part of that is the gear I'm using on these champions. Since I have Grush, I am using Stalwart gear on these champions here. However, the fact that a speed team can reach that 2 key and consistent 3 key while using someone like Venus, who is definitely a suboptimal champion in a situation like this, since there's not a lot of poisons always being applied to the boss, just based on how inconsistent her A1 actually is. This gives a lot of hope for a lot of players who are looking to do Nightmare or Ultra Nightmare with a team like this to get that consistent 3 key and make sure they're doing consistent in Nightmare, so they're slowly building up to that Ultra Nightmare level. And like I said, you can use these same speeds that I'm going to show you in Nightmare, keep all the teams the same, just slowly work on their gear, and instead of having to redo an entire clan boss team, you can just keep the speeds the same, improve the defense, improve the crit rate, whatever stats you need to succeed, and you can use the same team that got you through Nightmare all the way through Ultra Nightmare. And I think that adds a lot more value than people give credit for. So with all of that being said, I'm going to show you the champions, how I geared them, and what the speeds are in fact going to be. First champion we're going to start out with is in fact going to be Venus. She's at 218 speed. That's the first champion. As you can see, underwhelming crit rate 91%. We are getting that bonus from Krila. However, there isn't going to be 100% uptime on that increased crit rate buff, so there is a slight disadvantage there. He's running 3.2 thousand defense, 45,000 health, 261 accuracy. As far as mastery goes, the masteries you see for Venus are going to be the same for every single champion on this team, so I'm only going to show it once. Moving on to the next champion, which is in fact Krila. As we can see in the bottom, I do have 2 pieces of the Bazaar refresh, and there's a lot of RNG that does go into that as well. So it's possible that this team can actually do up to 40 million damage if I get enough resets. The gear is 5-star, so I am losing a little bit not having 6-star accessories like that, because accessories do provide a pretty good bump in stats there. Here we're running 219 speed, 4.3 thousand defense, 33,000 health, and 68% crit rate, which is a little bit low. It doesn't put me to 100% with that increased crit rate buff, and 245 crit damage. So far we have 218 and 219 speed, nothing crazy as far as the speed threshold actually goes. Moving on to Alton, we do have another refresh amulet on him because I happen to have a good crit damage one. Here we have 207 speed, so we are going a little bit lower. 4.6 thousand defense, about 45,000 health, and 285 accuracy, which is overkill. It's just how the gear managed to align with this champion that I had available. So he was the third champion. Once again, nothing crazy on the speed. Moving on to Grush the Mangler, we do have 37,000 health, 4.5 thousand defense, 208 speed, 92 crit, 172 crit damage, and 240 accuracy. A little bit low on the accuracy, but the leech debuff isn't as important since he does also provide a lot of utility with his continuous heals already. And finally, we have our awesome rare champion Apothecary. One of the few times I've ever actually used a rare champion in a team like this, and still staying rather low on the speed threshold. 209 speed, 44,000 health, just under 4,600 defense, 36% crit, which is low. However, his heal is strong enough to top people off without critting, so that is definitely the plus there, and why I wasn't too focused on crit rate there. 113 crit damage, not really an issue for someone like Apothecary. That's how I geared these champions. Those are the speeds. If you want a really good speed team, you don't want to kind of break your gear, stretch yourself really thin for every other part of this game content wise, I highly recommend using this speed team. You're going to go very far, and it really opens up a lot of options for you, because as I mentioned before, you don't have to plan which champion goes to which speed as far as what debuff you want. You can simply take the speeds I just showed you, say I'm going to use Tyrant Ixthamor here, I'm going to use Tayrel here, whichever champions you have at your disposal, you can plug and play with these speeds, and you are going to have a really good speed team on your hands for the clan boss. Alright guys, that is going to conclude it for my video today. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully I helped out a lot of people here, and they can kind of look towards this as someone who isn't able to reach those high speeds, don't have the best gear. You can definitely use this team and continue your success in the clan boss going forward, making sure you are maximizing your potential and getting the highest rewards you possibly can with whatever clan you are in. As always guys, if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss my next video, and I will see you all in the next upload.